Want to know the biggest mistakes you're making as a beginner at Illustrator? In this part 2 video, we're going to discuss mistakes 6 through 10 so you can stop doing them and so you can be the best at Illustrator. So let's get right into it. Mistake number 6, missing images in your Illustrator file due to not embedding. Have you ever opened up an Illustrator file and found that there were missing images in the artwork accompanied by this message? Could not find the linked file. And it asks you to replace, ignore, or cancel. This is what happens when you place images in an Illustrator file as a link and not embedded. Let me quickly explain why this happens and how to avoid it. Sometimes we need to bring an object into Illustrator that's just an image. You might be doing this to put a reference image next to your sketch, or maybe you had an artwork element in Photoshop that you wanted to add into your Illustrator file. So the way you place the image into Illustrator is really important because there's an option that causes this linked file problem to occur. When you place an image into Illustrator, you're going to hit File, Place, and that's going to bring up this dialog box where you're going to choose which image you want to place. Here, make sure that this link box is not checked. As long as it's unchecked, the image will be placed as an embedded object and you won't get that error message anymore, and you won't have any missing images in your file. But if you do place the image in the Illustrator file with link checked, what happens is that the image is not really in your Illustrator file. It's actually on your computer wherever that file is saved. It only appears as if it's in your Illustrator file. So if you or someone else tries to open that file on a different computer, if the linked file is not saved on that computer also, that's when you'll get that error message, and that's why Illustrator can't find your linked image, and the area where you placed it is now blank. This happens often when you're working with a design team. One member of the team might have done this, and when another designer needs to open the file and alter it on their computer, they'll get this error message. So the best thing to do is just always keep the link box unchecked whenever you place images into Illustrator. And if you accidentally place it as linked and you realize that after it's already in the file, just select the image and click up here on the Embed button, and this will make the image embedded and you won't have that problem. Mistake number 7. Not converting text into outlines. When you have text in your artwork, like lettering or logo artwork, before sending your Illustrator files out, you need to convert your text to outlines. Why do you have to do this? It's because the person receiving your Illustrator file may not have the same fonts as you installed on their computer. And if they don't have the font, the lettering will show up wrong. Illustrator will change the lettering to another font that the person does have on their computer, and it will not look like your intended artwork. This is especially important if you're sending your artwork to factories because this can hold up production. They'll usually ask you to convert the font to outlines and resend the file. This can delay production for at least a day or two since often the time zones between design and the factories are totally different. At least it is if you're working in the US and your factory is overseas, which is often the case. So in order to avoid this, once your artwork is finalized and ready to be sent out, it's always a good idea to convert your font to outlines by going to the top menu, selecting text, convert to outlines. And you see your text is no longer a font. It's now shapes that won't be changed, and the factory should have no problem working with your file. But you need to be warned. Once you convert your text to outlines, this is a permanent change. It can't be reversed. You'll no longer be able to use this as a font, meaning you can't type it into different words anymore. So before converting your text to outlines, make sure to save a copy of your artwork that still has the lettering in font format so that you can always know what font you used later on, in case that you need to use it again or if changes need to be made to this part of your artwork. I highly urge you to keep a copy of your file in font format. You'll be likely to need it later on. Now moving on to mistake number 8, but real quick, if you're finding this video useful, please hit the like button and please subscribe. It'll help me to keep bringing you more videos like this. Mistake number 8, not exploring Illustrator to see if there's a better way to do something. This mistake is not the same as the keyboard shortcuts we spoke about in part 1. This is about learning your panels and exploring different methods of doing things in Illustrator. It's about updating your knowledge, finding out about different ways to change colors, different ways to fill patterns in, etc. Don't just stick to one way of doing things, especially when it feels like there must be a quicker way to do something. With Illustrator, oftentimes there is, but you didn't take the time to research and learn. You can learn a lot just by exploring your panels or exploring a tool that you haven't used very much. I have several videos on my channel which teach you different ways to do things, like different ways to select and change the color of objects, different ways to recolor a fashion sketch, and a full in-depth tutorial on the swatches panel, which is a whole world in and of itself on Illustrator. Take some time to check it out. You might learn something you didn't know. Mistake number 9. Exporting improperly, or allowing preliminary work to be seen. This mistake happens all the time, and not just with beginners. Once you finish your artwork on Illustrator, chances are you're going to need to export your file so that you can send your image to your boss or your client as a JPEG. If you're using File Export to save your Illustrator work as a JPEG, you need to click that Use Artboards checkbox. And if you're saving with Save for Web, you need to click on Clip to Artboard. If you don't, this is what happens. All the work outside of your artboard will show. This is all the preliminary work that you did that you don't want people to see. But I see files like this sent all the time. Emailed to the boss. Not good. Your files can't be sent to a buyer with all this outside stuff showing. It's really easy for anyone to make this mistake. So be sure to remind yourself to check that Use Artboards box and get into the habit of checking your JPEGs before you email them. Don't just assume that the file's exported correctly. Actually double click on them, preview them, and look them over so if this or any other mistake is on there, you can fix it before it gets sent to your boss or to a buyer. Mistake number 10, not saving your files enough. I see this all the time. Designers will work through an entire sketch or an entire pattern and not save their work until the end. This is so dangerous. Do you know what can happen if you don't save your work? Illustrator can crash and you can lose everything that you didn't save. Illustrator can be unpredictable sometimes, especially when you're working with big files. I tell everyone, save your work often. Often means every couple of minutes. Yes, that often. It only takes a second. You just have to hit File Save or use the keyboard shortcut Control or Command S. I save my work literally every couple of minutes and definitely after any significant action that I just made or after sketching an important or difficult part of my project. Get into the habit of this because it's a very easy way of making sure you don't lose hours worth of work. If you've ever experienced an Illustrator crash, you know how painful it can be to lose all that hard work. And while we can't always stop it from happening, we can do some things to help prevent it. You can learn my helpful tips on how to stop Illustrator from crashing in the next video. Click the link to watch. See you there.